Good afternoon, everybody, and welcome to our BrightGen's Winter 15 release webinar. I hope you find this a useful session. It's the usual format for those for our regulars, but for those who are joining us for the first time, in a second I'll be just running quickly through the agenda points, and then I'll be handing over to our Chief Technical Officer, Keir Bowden, who's going to go through each of the new features and give you some detail behind those. As we go, please feel free to use the chat section on the webinar console to ask any questions. I'll compile those, and at the end I'll share those with Keir, and Keir can answer all of those off. So without further ado, let's go through the agenda just very briefly. So the things that Keir will be covering as part of this webinar will be some new API access changes, some new features of Salesforce One, Chatter, some additional features of communities, and then likewise with Sales and Service Cloud, and any platform features just to finish off. At the end, we'll go through the questions and answers of all of the anything that you've asked during the session. So without further ado, I'll hand over to Keir, and hope this is an interesting session for you. So Keir, all yours, sir.
Thank you very much, Clive. Right, so the main thrust of our webinar today, the new Winter 15 release of Salesforce, which should be hitting the EU servers on the weekend of the 17th and 18th of October, if all goes according to plan. So first off, we have a change to API access for connected applications. There's a dedicated help article for this at the short link on the screen there. So if you want to understand more about this, then click through and have a look at that. Don't worry about writing this down because we'll be sharing the slide deck after the webinar finishes. So once Winter 15 is live, any user that accesses via a connected application must have the API-enabled profile permission turned on. Without this, they'll receive errors that they don't have permission, or they'll be sent back to the login page each time they authenticate. At the moment, they can access the connected applications without this permission, so once it starts being enforced, they may find they suddenly lose access. So the internal connected apps that Salesforce have identified are the Salesforce One downloadable applications for iOS and Android, Salesforce for Outlook, Connect for Outlook, Connect for Office, and Chatter Desktop and Chatter Messenger. And there are also a number of partner applications that require this permission as well. In fact, there's over 200 of them, but obviously it's unlikely you'll be using very many of them, if any. So again, the short link shown there will give you an Excel spreadsheet that will show you all of the affected partner apps that have been identified. So next up, we have some new features in the Salesforce One application. So the first set of changes I'm going to talk about for the HTML5 version of Salesforce One. So this is the version that you'd access through the browser on your phone or tablet device, and where you have to log into Salesforce each time you use it. So I doubt that many people on this call are actually using this version of Salesforce One. But the reason we're doing this is because these changes are going to be added to the downloadable iOS and Android applications in the future. And the iOS and Android applications are updated outside of the main Salesforce release cycle. So we won't necessarily have covered this in a webinar if we don't cover it now. So this is essentially a heads up on some functionality that will be delivered sometime after the Winter 15 release to the downloadable applications. So the major change to Salesforce One is the action bar. So at present, there's a number of ways to take action on a Salesforce One page, as I've highlighted in the red boxes here. So from top to bottom, we have record actions, standard and custom buttons, and finally the publisher actions, which are customizable. So these are being consolidated into the action bar at the bottom of the record, again highlighted with the red box on that screenshot there. And that's basically going to be the only place that you'll interact and carry out actions on a record. Now, most records have more than 4 or 5 ways to take action. So the rightmost button containing the ellipse, if you click on that, then that will show you all available actions for the record in a scrollable page. So it's also possible to work directly in lists of records rather than having to navigate to individual record details and then find the action bar. So in the screenshot here, I have I've just navigated to an account and I've pulled up the related opportunities. So it's just a related list hanging off an account record. So if I then swipe one of those entries, what that'll do is that will swipe the details out of the way and reveal the inline action bar for that record. And again, if I click on the ellipsis, the button on the far right, then again that will show me all of the actions that are available for that particular record in the list in a scrollable page. So there's also been some updates to the search functionality. So first, search is going to be available outside of the navigation menu by clicking on the magnifying glass icon at the top right. So you won't have to keep moving yourself out of the current context that you're in, going to the navigation menu, searching for things, and then coming back in again. And also you can narrow the search results to a particular S-object type by selecting an entry from the horizontal scrolling list under the search field. So it's quite neat actually, because you can type in some search text, and then if you just kind of tap on accounts, cases, contacts, or groups, then that search will be updated in real time to give you all the matches of that particular S-object type. Okay, next up, there are going to be some changes to the downloadable application, to the iOS and Android version. So this is the version that you install on your device from the App Store or the Google Play Store. The new version containing the updates detailed here and in the Winter 15 release notes will be available shortly after the Winter 15 release goes live. Unfortunately, we don't know any more than shortly after, so we don't know what that timescale actually means, but it's usually fairly quickly after the release goes live on the main servers. So some of the more obvious missing functionality that's available on the main UI has been added to the downloadable application in Winter 15, including the ability to convert a lead to a contact. You can also configure a publisher action, which allows products to be added to opportunities. That's not turned on by default, so you have to create an action of an add product type. Simple configuration, there's no visual force or anything involved. When viewing a dashboard in Salesforce One, you can drill down to a matrix report. So previously you could only drill down to tabular and summary reports, but now it supports all three of the main report types. And finally, approvals are now available as an item on the navigation menu, so they appear on the left-hand menu as shown in the highlighted red box. But at the moment, this is only available for the iOS version of the application. We have no information about when that might be coming to Android. There's also a restricted amount of offline access available in the downloadable applications. This is read-only, so you can't update records and the like. It includes the 5 most recently accessed dashboards, so the information on those gets cached. Events that are displayed in the Today application on the device, and some of the recently accessed objects. So I say some of the recently accessed objects because it's not an exact science. It's not 100% straightforward, which is why we've included the short link here, because this gives full details of how recent objects make their way into the offline cache. If you try the short link and you don't get anywhere with it, it may be that it's not activated yet because it's part of the Winter 15 release, so it might take a couple of weeks for that to become available. Okay, so next up is something that was introduced outside of the Summer 14 release. It was introduced a couple of months ago as part of the kind of main release cycle development that goes on with Salesforce One, but we thought this was a useful one to cover here. So you can now switch between accounts in Salesforce One. So if you're using Salesforce One for your production instance, you can also configure it to allow access to your sandbox instance without having to log out and to log back in again each time. So next to your username, there's an inverted caret symbol, and if you click on that to switch user, that opens up a list of configured users to choose from. So as you can see, I've got quite a lot of users configured in on various developer orgs and the like on my Salesforce One application. And then down the bottom, you can click on the Add New Account button and enter additional credentials for a new Salesforce instance. So that will take you on to the login page. You'll enter the user ID and password, and then that user will be cached in the application, and you'll be able to switch over to that without needing to enter your credentials again in the future. So that's the end of Salesforce One. So next we have some chatter enhancements. So one that I'm quite pleased about is the new group type. in Winter 15 unlisted groups. So these are private groups, but they're kind of ultra private groups. They're extra private groups. They have additional privacy features. So they don't appear in search results or list of groups. So that means that if somebody searches, they think there's a secret group called Account Secret or something like that, and they search for it. If they aren't a member of that group, then they won't see anything about it. This isn't 100% private, because if someone tries to create a group with the same name, then you get an error message that tells you there is a group of that name, even if you can't see it. So one point to make is, if you're going to use unlisted groups, make sure you don't put any sensitive information in the group name, because it is possible, although if it's a particularly long name, unlikely, that someone will try and create a group of the same name and will receive that error message. This is by unlisted groups are by invitation only, so users can't ask to join. They have to be invited in by the group or group owner, and they can't ask to join because they can't see the group, so they can't request membership. This does require setup. It's not too arduous. You just have to navigate to the Shatter setup area, read the large warning message, and check the box inside of it, and then you'll be able to create unlisted groups from that point on. Other changes to Chatter is Files Connect, which allows you to access SharePoint files from within Salesforce. You can also report on links to Chatter files or content deliveries to see when the file was first shared, how many people have accessed it, and other useful information. If you've used content deliveries before, and it's the kind of information that you'd be able to see on a content delivery, but this allows you to report on it across multiple content deliveries and multiple links to files, which didn't have that capability on before. And finally, you can include up to 25 attachments when you're emailing posts to a Chatter group. And the first file is added to the post itself, and the rest are added as a file per comment to the post. So if you posted an email containing 25 attachments, that would show up as a post and 24 comments from you, each one of which had a file attached to it. So next up, we have some enhancements to the communities functionality. So you can now override the login, logout, and self-registration standard pages for a community. Previously, you could only customize these pages to give them a little bit of branding. And communities now also support custom HTTPS domains for improved branding again. So rather than having to have something like brightgen.secure.force.com, we'll be able to have HTTPS community.brightgen.com or something on those lines. These two items are something that's in our community's roadmap here at BrightGen to look at. So if you're a service customer, watch out for updates from your friendly service manager. And the engagement console that was introduced in summer 14 had a very short life with that name, and it's now been renamed the community management page. So there's also been some renaming of some menu options and labels in the community setup page. So it's useful if you've got people that maintain this, that they know this is coming, and they don't get surprised when things look slightly different. So I've numbered 4 of the changes here. So number 1, the Manage Communities link has been renamed to All Communities, as shown. Number 2, the page that lists the communities has been renamed from Manage Communities to simply Communities. Number 3, the edit link next to community's name is now a drop down, because there's a menu there. There's more than one thing you can do with it. I think it just used to have edit on it prior to that. So this has now links to the admin settings for the community, and also to the community management page, which allows you to find out more about the health of that community. And finally, number 4, the link that used to point to site.com now points to Community Designer. And finally, there are some new features in the community metrics package, which, if you've installed that, are available on the community management page. This package is a freebie on the App Exchange from Salesforce, and the upgraded version will be available from the App Exchange again shortly after Winter 15 goes live. So these include a self-service dashboard to tell you how well people are serving themselves on it, a topics dashboard which gives you an idea of which topics are being created, which ones are popular, which ones are being used heavily, and a moderation dashboard so you can see if you've got any problems with users requiring posts moderated, etc. Okay, next up we have some Sales Cloud enhancements. So I think this is probably one of the biggest features in Winter 15, and this is the new duplicate management functionality. It's a beta feature. However, as we've mentioned before, this isn't like beta in legacy systems. So beta in Salesforce means that the feature is production quality but has known limitations, and it's intended to become generally available within 3 releases. So it's not like it used to be back in the old days when something was in beta, and if you started using it, you then ran the risk that it would disappear under you in a release or two's time. This will continue on. It's just kind of an early version of it at the moment. So this functionality flags and optionally blocks duplicates at creation time through the UI. It requires activation from Salesforce, and it requires you to set up some rules around how you detect duplicates, so which fields are involved, what the matches have to be. Are they exact matches? Are they close matches? And you can also configure whether users are allowed to create duplicates or not, because it may be that actually you can genuinely have 2 contacts with the same name because of the way your business works. So here's a screenshot of what happens when a duplicate is detected when you're creating. So this is creating a new account. As you can see here, I've given it an account name of salesforce.com Inc. and I've given it a phone number 0800 555 1121. And Salesforce has detected that there's a bunch of accounts with the same name. And there are, actually, I don't think any of those have got the same phone number, so that is different. But it's detected the same name, so there's 5 possible duplicate records. Do I just want to update the phone number of those? So I can do that, or I've got the buttons at the top to save and ignore the alert, or to cancel out of it. So obviously, if it was configured so that I wasn't allowed to create a duplicate, all I'd have up there is the cancel button. I wouldn't have the opportunity to save and ignore the alert. So there's also been some improvements to the forecasting capabilities. So custom field forecasting is now generally available. So this allows forecasting on custom currency fields on opportunities, but this does require some setup. And additionally, forecasting managers can now add notes to provide context when they make a forecasting adjustment. These notes can contain up to 140 characters, in line with Twitter, but they only appear on the forecast page. They don't appear in any reports, so it's not like that information can be surfaced outside of the main UI. And another beta feature, you can now have custom lookups on activities. So in the past, if you needed this type of functionality, and I believe we have implemented this for a couple of our customers in the past, we had to store IDs in text fields and override standard pages with Visualforce to make those text fields behave like lookup fields and all that kind of good stuff. So now this is going to be available in the platform. So it's a beta feature. It requires Salesforce to activate it. And once it's activated, you can just add custom lookup fields to the page layout as you would with any other first-class S-object. And also, anything that you look up to from this activity, the activity will appear in the roll-up list on the related record or records. So, as well as going to the as well as appearing on the related, if it's assigned to a contact and it's related to an opportunity, you can then have additional lookups and it will still roll up to one of those as well. So those activities can be related to any number of records. You can also allow your users to control whether they wish to receive task notification emails or not. However, if you're worried this will result in users not picking up tasks, you can disable this feature simply through a checkbox on the UI. So next up, we have some Service Cloud enhancements. So on the knowledge side of things, you can now monitor the performance of your knowledge articles via a new S-object called Knowledge Search Activity. So this is an S-object that's kind of maintained internally by the platform, and you can use this in custom report types to provide you with actionable data. So you can see the number of searches per channel, which may be of interest. You can see the keywords that are being searched for, which I think would be exceptionally interesting, because what you'll see there is where people are searching for keywords and they're not finding any articles. So that will give you an indication of anywhere that there are gaps in your knowledge base. You can see the average number of results and articles returned per search, and also the average number of clicks and unique users for articles. So it'll give you an idea of how useful and how popular these articles are. So knowledge article search, this is the internal knowledge article search. So if you've done anything with Visualforce, you wouldn't get this out of the box. They now highlight the keyword matches. So here I've entered the keywords Winter'15. and the matches in the results are then displayed as bold, as highlighted in the red boxes there. Finally, on knowledge, you can now promote articles by including additional keywords on the article that don't actually appear on the article anyway. So it's almost a way of tagging it in such a way that the tags become searchable. So these are configured through a related list on the published article. And then these articles will then appear in the search result where there's a match on keywords. So an example search, I've got a Winter 15 blog article which doesn't include the Dreamforce keyword in the body, but I think that will be of interest for to people who are looking for information on Dreamforce and going to Dreamforce. So if I add that as a promoted term, then my search here, the keyword I've put in is Dreamforce, and it will match the article, even though, as you can see, there's no highlighting. So the word Dreamforce doesn't actually appear in that article anywhere. Chatter questions are now generally available, something we'll certainly be making use of here at BrightGen. We do a lot of collaboration, a lot of questions get posted to our chatter feed, and this will kind of formalize it and allow us to market it, to know that it's a question straight away, and also to allow us to indicate what the appropriate answer was if you get a number of answer options. So basically, to recap, this feature allows you to ask questions directly in the chatter feed. So you've got a question action, you can start typing in your question. As you type, there's auto suggestions for existing answers on knowledge articles, so it'll try and deflect the question if at all possible. If none of the auto suggestions help, then the user posts the question to the feed and other users post answers. And if one of the answers is correct, the original poster can mark it as the best answer, which means that somebody else with the same question in future can quickly access the correct solution. Okay, so moving on to our final section, changes to the platform. Something I'm quite pleased about, because I've got an internal project I'm working on at the moment this is perfect for, is the ability to define custom permissions. So effectively, defining a custom permission is a way of making your own permissions appear on profiles or permission sets, much like standard permissions. So if I go and this gives me kind of more granularity. If I've got an S object that allows me to maybe make an expense claim, and I want to say that only 1 or 2 people are allowed to approve that expense claim outside of the standard approval process type of thing, I can create a custom permission called approve expense claims, and every profile in the system, all the custom profiles, because standard profiles aren't configurable, but every custom profile in the system will then have an additional permission called approve expense claims, and I can just choose on a profile by profile basis, or the permission set on a user by user basis, whether I wish to grant those permissions or not to those users. And you can also access the custom permissions in formula fields and validation rules using a new $permission global variable. So you'll be able to check when a user is doing something if they have a custom permission that should allow them to save that record or update that record. So it should give a lot more control over exactly what users can do if that's something that you need. Hover links have been added to the feed-based record layouts. So if you're using feed-based layouts, which you can identify via the fact that you've got a feed tab and a separate details tab, you'll now see the hover details for the related records as you would with non-feed-based layouts. So that's something that was in the regular kind of record layout, and when the feed-based record layouts were introduced, that functionality went away. So now that's been added back in again. Delegated administrators can now assign permission sets to a configured set of roles or roles and subordinates. But note, this only allows adding or removing permission sets to those roles. The delegated admins can't go and edit the permission set contents and change anything about that. They can simply assign them or unassign them from roles and subordinates. And the session timeout and password policies are now per profile. So if you've got some users that are going to have a profile that maybe needs tightened up security, then you can specify a smaller session timeout and more restrictive password policies. And by the same token, if you've got some users that for whatever reason you wish to relax those restrictions, you can do that as well. Okay, also new in Winter 15 is access to the event log files. So these are generated from the underlying Salesforce Splunk logs, and contain information about system usage, user behavior, requests, kind of all the interactions that users are doing on a kind of minute by minute basis with the system is all captured and logged, and this log information is going to be made available to us to be able to get some more intelligence out of them. So these are read-only logs, and they must be accessed via the SOAP or the REST API. There's no standard front end to them, and I suspect there won't be because there's going to be quite a lot of information in here. So I think the idea is that you'll pull that information out into your external system, and you'll slice and dice that however you want. Now, one thing to point out is that this log information isn't generated until the day after the event took place. So they're always, effectively 24-hour delayed, and you wouldn't be able to use them for real-time monitoring to flag up that somebody was doing something, because it actually would become somebody did something yesterday, so you wouldn't necessarily be able to jump into it and do anything about it. Okay, finally, sorry, not finally. Next up, we have login flows. So you can now use Visual Flow to build login flows. So I know this is something we've built for a number of our customers. So essentially, these get assigned to profiles, and they get executed immediately after a user with that specific profile authenticates. So before they're taken to the homepage, before they view a record, before they see a dashboard report, before they see anything, you have the ability to intercept and capture some information, ask users to accept the new terms of service. So you basically got a way of injecting some behavior immediately after that user signing in. As I say, I know we've implemented this in the past through sidebar components and the like, which have always been slightly limited because they don't display on dashboard pages and report pages. So if users have deep link to those, they can potentially bypass the new process that's attempted to be put in place. So this will be a perfect solution for that. Apex classes with scheduled jobs can now be deployed from sandboxes onto production. So previously, this required you to delete the scheduled job, note down the details of it, and then recreate it after the deployment. So now you can leave those scheduled jobs as they are and push those classes across. And finally, the rich text editor toolbar has been changed a little. So this is another kind of heads up so that users don't think that you've swapped systems on them when it looks a little bit different. The functionality is the same, but the styling and sizing is now consistent for all the elements. The colors have been removed, so it's a consistent grayscales across. So there's been absolutely no change in terms of what you can do with the editor. It's just been the style's been changed slightly, so just make sure that the users are expecting that when they see it for the first time. So this has been a quick tour of the highlights of the release that we believe are of interest to you, our customers. There's obviously other changes that we haven't covered today because there's about 350 pages of release notes again. So if you'd like more information, then head over to the Winter'15 release portal at the short link shown, and you'll find the release notes in all their glory. There's additional documentation, there's training videos, and plenty more information. Okay, so that's the end of the overview from me. So over to Clive. Do we have any questions?
Well, believe it or not, no.
Oh, first.
All must have been so clear. So if there aren't any questions, it just remains for me to say that we'll be sending out the slide deck and the YouTube recording of this webinar out to all of the attendees as per usual. If you've got any further questions about the webinar or any of the features and you want to talk to us in private about them, by all means get in contact with Kira and myself here at BrightGen. We hope we'll see you again at our next webinar, which will be for Spring 15.
Spring 15, indeed.
Had to think about that. Spring 15. Just before you go, for you guys out there who are using case management or thinking of using case management, we've found a really neat feature here at BrightGen. So we use it basically every day of our life in the service, and service customers will know how that works. It works quite well. We found a neat feature that we're using called Email to Case Premium. It's got some pretty good ways of dealing with some of the traffic between the contacts and the case owners. So one of the key things is that you can obviously send emails as you can with normal email to case to the contacts, but the contacts then can reply to that email, and it cuts the body of the email text out from the email and paste that in as a comment. It still attaches the email to the case, but it actually extracts the comment or the body of the text and puts it in as a comment, which means that you get all of the you cut out all of the noise of the email trail being added every time. It's also got some inbound and email loop protection. So if someone's copying in and responding to the case handling email address, it's got some protection to stop that firing off 1,000 cases through as the email sort of proliferates around. You can automatically create contacts from cases, and you can CC and BCC other people into case comments. They don't necessarily have to have a Salesforce account that can send people information that way. So it's got some neat features. If you're interested in learning more about it, by all means get in contact with me or any of the service team here, and we can talk you through it and see if it's a benefit for you. So I thought I'd just share that with you. Hope you don't mind. So I think that being done, I think we're clear. Thank you ever so much for your attention. I hope you found that a useful session, and we'll hopefully see or speak with you all soon. Take care.
Thanks very much, everyone.
Bye.